Terrifying secrets exposed. When a diver discovers they're haunted by sinister, unexplained forces. Jessica felt the salt-stained air swirling around her, but it wasn't just the ocean's breath that rattled her bones. Tonight, it was darker than usual. Shadows loomed like specters as she pulled on her gear, the weight of the world sitting heavy on her shoulders. The town of Point Haven had long whispered of curses buried in its depths. As a local diver, she spent her days pulling treasures from the sea, but she felt it too, a presence lurking beneath the waves. With a final glance at her small, humble home, where laughter and worry blended in equal measure, she slipped into the water. The chill wrapped around her, a bitter embrace that made her heart race. Tonight was a night for exploration, for unearthing the whispers of history trapped in old wrecks. But something didn't feel right. The ocean pulled at her, beckoning her deeper into its cold clutch. As she descended, the shadows danced eerily in her vision. She approached the ancient shipwreck, its silhouette sharp against the muted underwater light. Long-forgotten tales of sailors who met grim fates washed over her mind. A shiver raced down her spine. Suddenly, her flashlight flickered, and a fleeting glimpse caught her eye. An object lay ensconced in coral, bathed in a ghostly glow, the relic of legends she had heard too often. Heart pounding, she reached for it, fingers trembling. These engravings spoke of dark histories, the kind that left a sour taste in the mouth. A shriek echoed in her ears, and she felt it, the weight of many eyes upon her. Hungry and expectant, she shot to the surface, gasping for air, her heart hammering like thunder. That's when she knew, she had stirred some unseen force. Her body went taut with dread. The night felt ominous, charged with an energy that made her want to scream. That evening, as sleep twisted into a restless dance, a shriek pulled her from her dreams. It pierced the night, and her breath caught in her throat. Sammy, her inquisitive son, sat on the edge of his bed, wide eyes fixated on shadows curling in the corners. "Mommy, they want you," he whispered, voice trembling. Panic clawed at Jessica's insides, her instincts kicking in. What had she unearthed? Every whispered tale she had dismissed suddenly seemed all too real. Dark figures twisted in her mind's eye, shadows from her dreams merging with the night. She could feel the walls of her sanity begin to tremble. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As days passed, Jessica's once cheery home dripped with tension. She sought solace in her neighbors, only to find their laughter quivering under the weight of her accusation. "You've been diving too deep," they said, dismissing her with half-hearted chuckles before retreating behind closed doors, leaving her feeling smaller, more isolated. She sensed mistrust in their glances, a sharp shift in their warmth. Desperate for answers, Jessica turned to the local authorities. But their dismissive sneers stung like needles. The sheriff, a man she once trusted, now felt like a wolf in sheep's clothing. Accepting her unease, they murmured about a woman on the edge, but Jessica felt something fierce and primal ignite within her, a mother's fury protective of her son crystallizing her resolve. The evening shadows lengthened into threatening shapes, beckoning her toward an unspoken truth. The relic wasn't just a piece of history, it was the pulse of a hidden evil festering in the heart of Point Haven. As she clutched her son close, fear coiled tighter around her heart. Would she have the strength to uncover the darkness, or would the town's haunting secrets drag them both down into a legacy of despair? Jessica's nights grew restless, shadows deepening at every corner, whispering secrets like an ominous breeze. Sleeplessness gnawed at her, turning her mind to a frayed thread. The town, once vibrant, morphed into something sinister, each face around her worn thin by fear. Duty, once her anchor, felt like a shackle, dragging her closer to despair. Whenever she caught a glimpse of the ocean, a feeling of suffocation gripped her. It was as if the waves themselves conspired against her, eager to reclaim what she had stolen. She would hear whispers while walking Sammy to school, eerie echoes burrowing into her mind. "You shouldn't have returned that which was lost." Sammy said nothing more of the they from his dream, but Jessica felt it lingering, an icy finger tracing her spine. She stared at him while he played, imagining the worst. Were the shadows in his room mere figments, or something more diabolical? Her reality twisted daily as dread settled in like an unwelcome guest. The town held its breath, the stillness thickening into a suffocating fog. It bore down on her, squeezing until she felt like she might fracture. Jessica decided she couldn't hide anymore. She wouldn't allow the darkness to swallow her son. She needed answers. Underneath the haunted moonlight, she paced down to the beach, eyes locked on the restless waves. Fear pulsed through her with every heartbeat, but determination surged in tandem. She could still feel the remnants of the relic, that ancient weight still clinging to her like a second skin. She had to return to where it began, beyond the wreck where the stories intertwined. Gathering her courage, she slipped into the familiar embrace of the bracing water. Each stroke felt like a rebellion against the chill that gnawed at her bones. She descended again, deeper this time past the level of safety where clarity once thrived. The darkness around her thickened, each shadow morphing into specters of long-lost souls. The wreck loomed ahead, an ancient guardian that held its secrets close. Daring to breach its silent depths, she swam through the gaping maw of twisted metal. A pulse, a hum echoed inside her head, a desperate calling for release. Her flashlight illuminated inscriptions that danced into her consciousness, conflicting memories of sailors' cries mingling with her own fears. A chill swept through her, bringing a revelation rooted in her past. History, it seemed, was predicated on sacrifice. The flickering light faded as the ocean darkened around her. Voices murmured, a disjointed symphony of despair intertwining with the murky water. "You've come to awaken us." The undertow tugged at her limbs, and she fought against it with every ounce of her strength. Then she saw it, the relic glowing from within the wreck, pulsating rhythmically as if alive. The haunting glow pierced through the dark swirling around her, casting eerie shadows over the remnants of the ship. Desperation brought her closer, fingers reaching despite the dread pooling in her gut, but something struck her. An unseen force, violent and fierce, pulled her back. Dizziness overtook her as her lungs screamed for air. The deeper she went, the more the presence pressed in on her, chaotic and ravenous. As she began to panic, a sudden silence engulfed the underwater world. It felt less like water and more like a thick veil, suffocating her, drowning out every frantic thought. She swung her flashlight to find the way, but found only swirling darkness. Panic gripped her, and in that brief moment she realized she was not alone. Eyes stared back at her from the abyss, hungry, waiting. With a jolt, Jessica lunged upwards, breaking the surface, gasping. The air hit her lungs like ice water. The stormy waves slapped against her, driving her ashore. But her heart sank at the sight a figure was waiting on the beach. Sammy stood there, eyes wide with fear, unable to speak. Behind him, shadows moved, twisting in the night. Jessica's blood ran cold. "What are you doing out here?" she shouted, but no answer came. The shadows thickened, pulsating with dread, sensing her. Fright, echoing an ancient hunger. As she reached for her son, the darkness crept closer, wrapping around her like a noose. "We've come for what is ours," whispered an unseen voice, chilling her to the bone. Jessica had to decide. Would she confront the darkness and save her son, or let ancient sins drag them both down? The depths of Point Haven concealed more than just relics. They slumbered with terrifying intentions waiting to be unleashed. What choice remained when the shadows demanded a reckoning? Jessica's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she felt the encroaching darkness tightening its grip. The shadows flickered and writhed like serpents, hungry and alive. "Sammy, come back!" she screamed, but the boy simply stood there, paralyzed by fear, eyes transfixed on the looming figures. They emerged from the blackness, grotesque shapes undulating gracefully yet threateningly. Jessica's breath hitched, and the salty air tasted of dread. "You don't have to be afraid," she yelled, each word feeling weaker and more desperate. Yet, even as she tried to call him, the shadows snickered, a sound like rustling leaves infused with malice. Mommy Sammy's voice was a whisper, trembling like a frail leaf. The shadows whispered back, their echoes taunting, "You shouldn't have returned." Nerves on fire, Jessica took a step forward but was met with a strange inertia that pulled her back. She blinked against the uncertainty, chasing away a growing sense of inevitability. "No. Not now," she muttered under her breath, grasping at her last reserves of courage. Suddenly, Sammy's figure shifted slightly, tilting his head as if he was in conversation with someone unseen. "They're not happy, are they?" he asked innocently, and dread washed over her. A chill swept through the air, further stealing her breath as the shadows cringed as if struck. "Forgive us," the voices chimed in a haunting chorus. "You cannot change the past, Jessica. It has claimed you and your child." The air thickened, every syllable laying heavy atop her chest as she took in the shadows' twisted shapes. They were remnants of lives long past, imprisoned in darkness, eyes filled with lost hope and bitterness. Jessica's mind raced. She was their key, and the relic held her fate, binding their stories together. "It was never yours to find," one shadow hissed, inching closer, the scent of decay wafting forth. Jess felt the panic clawing at her insides, squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. Desperation tugged at her thoughts. She had to get Sammy out, he couldn't pay for her mistakes. "Get away from him!" she yelled, lunging forward instinctively, the shadows recoiling momentarily before swelling back, a tidal wave ready to crash down. "Please!" she breathed, the word hanging in the electric air. Sammy's face was a mask of confusion and fear, and for a brief moment, she saw recognition flicker in his eyes. "Mommy, what's wrong?" She swallowed a lump in her throat, aware of the seconds slipping away. "I love you, Sammy. No matter what happens, I love you." The shadows laughed, a hideous cacophony. "Love cannot save you," they rasped. "You should have never touched what was buried." With sudden clarity, she remembered tales she thought were mere stories, warnings spoken in hushed tones, the town's secret tethered to the ocean. It never truly belonged to her, and the price was beyond her comprehension. Realization slammed into her, the relic demanded a reckoning, and she was dangerously close to the altar. "Return what you took," the shadows whispered, their chill ghosts inching closer. Jessica could feel her skin prickle, the hairs rising as dread clung to her body like a damp shroud. An apology? A sacrifice? "Mom?" Sammy's voice broke through the rising tide of darkness. He reached for her, a shrouded innocence in his eyes that pierced her heart with a splinter of hope. "Help me. Stand back," she shouted just as one shadow lunged towards him. She threw herself forward, blocking it with her body. The shadow recoiled, howling an inhuman sound that reverberated through her. In that moment, the ocean roared violently, furiously crashing against the sand, blurring the boundaries of their reality. Jessica wheeled around, desperation morphing into resolve. She had to return the relic. But how? The darkness coalesced, swirling around them, eager for her surrender. With all her strength, she pulled Sammy against her, holding tight as she scanned the chaotic beach. "The relic! We must take it back!" she shouted, fear and panic propelling her into the water. There was a chance, a flicker of hope in her heart that they could escape the grasp of the darkness together. "Mom, no!" Sammy cried, and the shadows writhed, sensing the desperation and fear intertwining with her own. "Trust me," she barked, powering through the waves, but no sooner had they stepped into the water than a pulse of energy rippled through the depths. The shadows screamed as the tide rushed forward, pulling them both toward the wreck. Jessica felt her grip slipping, the water tumbling around them as ancient forces rose. Would they embrace the night, or would she wrest the relic free and confront the darkness? Behind them, the shadows stretched forth, shadows with hands yearning for elusive forgiveness. Return and claim the cost, they chanted, their voices a haunting lullaby tugging at her resolve. Would the price of her past finally break her? The dark water swallowed them immediately, dragging Jessica and Sammy under the churning waves. Panic ignited inside her as the relentless tide thrashed them about, but she gritted her teeth and fought to keep Sammy close. Cold fingers of fear slipped around her heart, gnawing on her resolve, but she couldn't let go. Not now. The shadows were everywhere, swirling through the surf like phantoms of vengeance. Jessica strained against the pull of the current, searching the murky depths for the relic. She thought she caught a glimpse of it, glinting ominously beneath the dark surface, but each time she reached, the shadows slithered between them, pulling her back. "Sammy, hold your breath," she gasped, yanking him toward the surface. As they emerged, lungs gasping for air, the shadows threshed around them, desperation in their unseen grasp. The air tasted like brine and fear. "Mommy!" Sammy cried, his small hands tightening around her arm. "Focus, Sammy!" she yelled, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her. "We can't let them take you." But they were relentless. The shadows shrieked in anger, their howling voices filling her mind, merging with the rhythm of the crashing waves. "Return what belongs to us!" they screamed, echoing in the chaos as if the ocean itself were rebuking her. She couldn't reason, she couldn't think. All she knew was the relic was their target, the center of this malevolence. It held the key to the darkness pressing in on them. "It's down there," she whispered to Sammy as they bobbed in the surf, her eyes scanning for the flicker of that cursed item. "We have to go back." With a sudden surge of bravery, she dove beneath the waves again, pulling Sammy with her. The water closed over them like a heavy shroud, disorienting her as she fought against the current. Shadows wrapped around her legs, their touch icy and suffocating, trying to drag them down into abysmal depths. She gasped, her mind racing. She needed to focus. Then she saw it, the relic, barely illuminated by a torch beam from a distant boat that shimmered through the murky water. It lay nestled among shattered shells and sand, surrounded by darkness thick as wool. She dove deeper, heart pounding, determination rushing through her veins. The shadows hissed, screeching warnings that tickled her ears, testing her resolve. As she reached for it, an unbearable pressure enveloped her chest, squeezing tighter. She fought against it, her fingers finally brushing the relic's cold, smooth surface. The shadows howled in fury, tendrils wrapping around her and yanking her backward. "Mommy!" Sammy's voice slashed through the din, pulling her focus. She couldn't fail him. She wouldn't. Clutching the relic, she pulled it free and twisted around, fighting the surge toward the surface. With one powerful thrust of her legs, she broke the surface, gasping for air while holding the relic high above the water. But the shadows didn't relent. Furious gales of water erupted around them, a storm brewed by their fury. "Jessica," the voices wept, soup thick with despair. "You are not free." In disbelief, she stared at the relic, a twisted, ancient piece glimmering malevolently in her grasp. The shadows surged from the depths, their forms mingling with the watery chaos. "You cannot escape your past," they chanted, echoing the voices of all the souls lost. "I'll make them pay." Jessica screamed at the shadows, defiance roaring in her chest. Her grip tightened, but the chilling realness of the moment struck her as the darkness writhed, ready to reclaim what was theirs. In that electric split-second of rebellion, a violent wave crashed over them, pulling Sammy from her grasp. "No!" she shouted, lunging forward. The darkness surged, threatening to engulf him. As he disappeared beneath the waves, terror exploded inside her. "Sammy!" she cried, swimming desperately, panic fueling every stroke. But the shadows twisted around her, their laughter a chilling serenade, and as she pushed through the watery hell, one thought clawed at her mind: what did it mean to return what was taken? Frantically, she swung the relic in her hand like an anchor, the shadows recoiling. But what if her only choice was to surrender? Would letting go release them both, or seal their fate? "Mom!" His voice echoed through the depths, haunting and desperate. The waves surged as the ocean darkened around her. The shadows sneered, their forms closing in like a net. Time slipped away as Jessica realized the true cost of her past. What would she sacrifice to save him? And as the ocean thrashed behind her, one question lingered, chilling her to the bone: was the price truly worth the risk? The tumult of the ocean roared around Jessica as she sank back into the depths. The pressure was suffocating. Gasps of air mixed with stinging saltwater burned in her lungs. Her heart raced, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. Sammy's fading cries echoed through the chaos, and with each passing moment, her resolve flickered like the dying flame of a candle. Desperation clawed at her as she wrestled against the shadows surrounding her. Their whispers became clearer, ringing in her ears like a gruesome lullaby. They twisted her thoughts, reliving moments long buried, a past riddled with regret and loss. The faces of those she'd wronged stared back at her through the dark, their eyes hollow and accusing. "You cannot escape your sins," they murmured, intertwining with the splashes of water pulling her under. "Let him go," she shouted, treading water with equal measures of frustration and terror. The relic pulsed in her hand, hot and cold in a strange rhythm. It had a pulse of its own, a heartbeat in tune with the shadows. The more she gripped it, the more power surged through her, but at an unbearable cost. Her thoughts spiraled with confusion. Did she even know what this relic was? All the legends she had heard were washed away in the rush of the tide. Was it truly cursed? Or was it a lifeline? Caught in a tumult of emotion and fear, she had to make a choice. "I'll do anything," she whispered to the darkened water, her voice cracking and barely audible. "Just give him back." A frigid shudder threaded through the waves, and the shadows momentarily released their grip, retreating like a breath held too long. Jessica seized the opportunity, swimming deeper, her heart pounding loud enough to drown the echoes. She was uncertain of where she was headed, but she followed a faint glimmer in the dark, a shimmer that reminded her of Sammy's laughter, his wide eyes filled with wonder. The abyss yawned open, and she felt the pull of the current guiding her down. In that moment of escalating dread, another voice broke through the dark. A soft, familiar sound cut through the deafening roar of the surf. "Mommy!" It was Sammy, close enough to touch. Desperation surged again. She cursed her doubts and propelled herself forward, fighting the fear creeping up her spine. Thunderous waves slammed against her, but she squeezed the relic, willing it to give her strength. As she approached the glimmer, shadows recoiled again, howling in rage. They pushed back, angry at her defiance. "Sammy!" Her voice rang out, a lifeline tossed into the abyss. She saw him, his small figure struggling, hands reaching for her. A wave crashed over them both, blocking the fleeting light, and Jessica was blinded momentarily as panic erupted in her chest, but then, she felt it, a rush, a fierce determination igniting within. "I want to let you take him." Her voice turned into a roar, echoing through the water, more powerful than she thought possible. She wrenched the relic from her side and raised it high, channeling whatever energy it held into a glowing shield around them. The shadows writhed, shrieking in fury, swirling into vicious vortexes that tried to engulf her. Jessica pushed against the tide, feeling herself becoming part of the energy now glowing around her, a beacon amid the despair, and just then the shadows retreated, hesitating as if caught in a limbo of their own making. But it wasn't over. A voice, deeper and darker than any before, cut through the chaos and settled deep within her bones. "You think you can defy your fate?" The darkness receded momentarily, revealing a path toward Sammy, but the shadows were rising again, more furious than before, their wrath channeled toward her. With her heart pounding, Jessica understood the truth. The relic was more than just a means of escape. It was a reflection of her past, each choice making it stronger, feeding off her fear, her regrets. In that harrowing moment, she realized she could either cling to the relic and the tangled mistakes of yesteryear or let go completely, risking everything to save her son, but she had to decide. Fast. The darkness was closing in, and soon it would swallow them whole. As she braced herself for what she must do next, the tide grew still, a dreadful silence washed over the waves, and a chilling question filled the void: was she willing to lose herself to save the only thing left worth fighting for? Jessica's heart hammered as the calm choked her. Silence filled the ocean, an eerie absorption of sound that pulsed like a heartbeat. The shadows lingered, quivering in the stillness, impatient for her next move. Each minute felt like an eternity, pulling her deeper into doubt as if the weight of her past was drowning her in the depths. "Let go," the tempestuous darkness whispered, cruelly coaxing with the softness of a lover's touch. The relic throbbed in her palm, the pulse a mix of warmth and ice that mirrored her spiraling thoughts. Could she really abandon it? The fear of what lay behind her, the sins she had buried, screamed louder than the echoes of the past. "Jessica!" Another voice broke through, clearer now, Sammy's voice. It wasn't just a figment of her imagination. The tone wove between panic and longing. She clutched the relic tighter, the decision clawing at her heart like the shadows clawed at her mind. With a deep breath, Jessica closed her eyes. She had no choice but to confront every moment that led her to this torment. The memories unfurled like ribbons, the missed chances, the petty arguments, the nights she had spent drowning her sorrows while ignoring the weight of motherhood. Each regret fueled the shadow, and as she opened her eyes, she could see them writhe in delight, a devouring hunger in their hollow eyes. "You think you can deny us forever?" they taunted, their voices a cacophony of suffering. "No more!" Jessica screamed, a primal roar escaping her lips. It was no longer just about saving Sammy. It was about reclaiming her life from the chains that bound her. She could feel the relic vibrating wildly, resonating with the fury that surged through her. She had felt this power once before, in the moments when hope flickered weakly in the dark, an ember of resilience. As the shadows lunged at her, she transformed that ember into a blaze, letting the relic guide her. Instead of drawing from fear, she channeled her love for Sammy, igniting a radiant light in the abyss. The shadows lunged at the light, shrieking loudly as they writhed in pain. Desperate, they grasped for the tender edges of her hope, trying to snuff it out. Jessica realized the relic reacted to her emotions. Her love fed it, strengthened it. "Stay away from him!" she bellowed, forcing the shield to swell outward, pushing the darkness back. The shadows dissipated, their hiss melting into whimpers. "Mommy!" Sammy cried again, yet closer this time. Petering hope fell into her heart, a fragile yet potent stance against the storm. Though the path to her son was still obscured, she could see glimmers of light, glimmers of the life she had built for them, bright and joyful. But as quickly as they illuminated the water around her, a thick, suffocating shadow seeped back in, covering the pathway, darkening her resolve. "Please," she begged, her voice a whisper, edged with desperation. The currents churned, pulsating with chaos as if ready to consume them both. As she clawed through the water toward Sammy, the shadows rallied in a violent surge, lifting her and tossing her aside like a mere ghost in the undertow. The relic slipped from her grasp, spinning away, its glow dimming as darkness reclaimed its territory. In that critical moment, Jessica realized that without the relic, she was vulnerable. But if she let it guide her convictions, might it be the very thing that fails her? Just then, a ladder of light pierced through the darkness, illuminating a path to her son, but shadows around her screamed louder, their cries resonating with pure rage. Was the light truly a way out, or merely another trap laid by the darkness? The thought paralyzed her, a heavy weight in the water as she weighed her choices once more. Jessica gasped, her lungs burning, though she had no air. Panic wrapped around her throat, squeezing harder as the shadows closed in. The water felt heavier than before, thick with dread and despair. She could hear Sammy's voice, a fading echo, lost in the depths. It was an agonizing pull, a tug-of-war between the light, which promised freedom, and the shadow, a gnashing beast demanding her surrender. She strained her eyes against the darkness, searching for a sign, desperate for a lifeline. The glow of the relic was out of reach, flickering limply like a dying star. The shadows danced, circling her, mocking her fight. "You think you can escape?" they hissed, their voices dripping with the poison of her failings. Glimmers of past failures flickered in the corners of her mind, her neglected promises, the lifeless birthday parties, the nights too deep in wine to hear her son's tears. Each memory sent a chill down her spine, fueling the shadows that writhed eagerly around her. No, she screamed inwardly, steeling her mind. The light had to guide her, had to be safe. With a deep breath, she focused, pushing through the fear. Each heartbeat resonated in her chest like a war drum, urging her to fight. The shadows kept clawing, reaching out with icy tendrils that snatched at her limbs, pulling her back into their suffocating darkness. "You belong with us," they crooned, their voices weaving a spell of despair. But every ounce of strength sprang from her love for Sammy, a stark contrast to the cold cage of regret. She pictured his face, his laughter bubbling over their kitchen table, the warmth of his small hand in hers. She would not let the darkness claim him. Using that love, she formed an invisible barrier around her, igniting the remnants of the relic's power deep within her. Light radiated from her, sparking a weak glow against the night. The shadows shrieked, ricocheting from her, retreating for a moment just long enough for her to feel the hope. "Sammy!" she called out, her voice ripping through the silence, each syllable clawing past the terror. "I'm coming." In the briefest pulse of clarity, she saw him, standing just outside the smothering chaos. His small frame outlined against the blinding light, eyes wide with innocence and concern. He reached for her, his tiny hands desperate to bridge the rejection she felt when those memories haunted her. As she kicked forward, propelled by sheer will, the darkness swirled violently, blurring her vision. No! She would not be trapped again. But then, a sinking dread crawled into her gut. What if Sammy wasn't real? What if this was another illusion, another sinister manipulation? The realization froze her in place, clenching her heart in a vice grip. She hesitated just long enough for the shadows to sense doubt, their momentum barreling back with renewed strength. The current shifted around her, snaking through her legs, dragging her back. "Give in, Jessica," the whispers cooed softly, achingly sweet. "You cannot fight your true nature." "What if I wanted to?" Her voice trembled against the growing roar of the tide as she fought against it, grounding herself in her determination. But the shadows surged forward, and she was thrust into a whirlpool of darkness, helpless as they closed in, filling her world with chilling silence. And then she remembered the last flicker of light. It had shown the path to her son. With everything she had left, she reached for it, but the shadows laughed cruelly, slashing through her resolve. "Are you brave enough to uncover the truth?" They jeered, surrounding her, inching closer with each heartbeat, dread pooled thick at the base of her spine. What awaited her at the center of this darkness? Would she find darkness or clarity? In that moment, she realized the relic wasn't the only thing that could guide her home. But would she unleash something even darker, trying to uncover her truth? The water rushed around her, currents desperate to decide for her as the shadows clamored for one final grasp. Would she fight to the end, or fall into oblivion? The shadows screamed in fury, and just as her heart surged with renewed hope, an all-consuming darkness seemed to emerge from within, whispering promises of power intertwined with terror. The world spun around Jessica, drowning her in a whirlwind of despair. The shadows, once a mere encroachment, became a torrent, gnashing claws dragging her deeper into unforgiving darkness. She could feel the frigid water filling her lungs, suffocating her even as she fought against them. "Sammy!" She screamed his name again, desperate. Distant and faint, his voice came like a tender echo, calling her back, urging her forward, but the more she fought, the tighter the shadows gripped her. They hissed, throwing her past failures at her like stones, each one heavier than the last. The mother who forgot the school play. The friend she abandoned. The life she let slip away. "You deserve this," they whispered, their taunts weaving through the darkness, echoing in her mind. "You've seen the truth. Embrace it." With each grasp of the cold tendrils, she felt a flicker of doubt gnawing at her heart. Was this just punishment? Had she failed so wholly that even the love for her son couldn't save her? The relic's light pulsed weakly, a heartbeat fading in the night. Fight! She thought, clenching her fists as she focused on that glimmer. It was still there, yet elusive like a wisp of smoke. She gathered herself, steadying her breath, envisioning Sammy, envisioning hope. Only you can make it to the light. The voice was unmistakably her own, a solid anchor amid the raging storm within. Pushing against the relentless tide, she felt the shadows writhe, shrieking in frustration. Each kick and stroke became a chant, a prayer. For Sammy. For love. For life. As she swam deeper into the chaos, her mind ignited with determination. Somewhere beyond the dark, she saw Sammy's face again. This time, it didn't waver. Small and innocent, he glowed with an inner light that shone through the fog. Mom! His voice rang clear, more real than any specter. Please, I need you. As if summoned by his plea, bursts of energy exploded from her core, illuminating the shadows. They shrieked, recoiling, but Jessica pressed on. The darkness struggled against her light, straining to reclaim her, but she wouldn't relent. Clawing her way upward, she was struck with more memories. The party decorations she tossed in the trash. The Christmas gifts left unopened. Each tangled recollection only fortified her resolve. Why could she not turn it into strength instead of shame? Finally, through sheer will, she broke free. A jagged pulse of light erupted, and suddenly, the water around her transformed. The shadows dispersed like smoke in the wind, dissipating into the depths as she breached the surface, gasping for air, her heart racing violently. But the calm was short-lived. Emerging from the water, she found herself on the shore of an unfamiliar land. The sky above was painted a bruised purple, the air thick with foreboding. While the shadows had receded, they left behind a lingering chill. Where am I? She looked around frantically, her heart sinking. This wasn't just a physical distance, it felt like she had crossed into a different plane of existence. A distant laughter echoed through the fog. Not Sammy's, someone else's. It twisted through the air, setting her nerves alight with terror. It was smooth, too casual, like a predator stalking its prey. Jessica, the voice called, dripping with malice. Welcome home. Confusion and dread roiled within her. What home was he speaking of? She felt her pulse quicken, a primal warning shot. Something was not right, and it was watching her. It hit her then, realization crashing down. She had fought this dark entity, but was it truly vanquished? Or had she merely opened a door, inviting something far more sinister into her life? The laughter grew, and the fog deepened. She took a step back, dread pooling in her stomach as she stood on the precipice of her own nightmare. The shadows were not gone, they merely waited, coiling, whispering of secrets yet to be uncovered. She took a breath, steeling herself. I will find Sammy, she vowed fiercely. But as she scanned the horizon, a chilling thought clawed its way into her mind. What if Sammy was never what he seemed? And then, as dread filled her senses, Jessica realized she might not be alone after all. A sudden rustle broke the suffocating silence, sending Jessica's heart racing. She turned quickly toward the sound, breath hitching in her throat. The shadows around her seemed to thicken, a palpable presence lurking just out of sight, and she strained to focus on the shifting forms, daring them to reveal themselves. Sammy, she called out, her voice quaking. The laughter faded, but not the weight of eyes burning into her, their gaze like ice creeping over her skin. It felt almost playful, as if whatever lurked just beyond her reach was enjoying her fear. The ground beneath her felt damp and uneven, and she took a cautious step forward. She could feel the earth squishing beneath her foot like rotten fruit, reminding her of something she couldn't quite grasp, an ancient warning from her childhood that echoed like a nightmare. When she heard a faint whimper, fading into the fog, her stomach twisted. Sammy! Panic clawed at her throat. The darkness responded with a low growl, deep and rumbling, as if the very land itself was alive. Hungry, she ran, not even aware of where she was headed, only forward, into the creeping mist swirling around her, blurring her sense of direction. Each step was a fight against the tendrils of doubt that crept closer, wrapping around her ankles, clutching at her, coiling like a serpent poised to strike. "Do you really think he is here?" A voice slithered through the air, seductive and smooth. "Maybe you're just chasing shadows, again." Jessica froze, her heartbeat pounding loudly. The voice was familiar yet twisted, turning the sweetness of her child's laughter into something sharp and sinister. "Stop it!" she shouted, fists clenched, heart racing. "Don't you dare!" The fog shifted, forming into a shadowy figure that wavered between forms, a reflection of her memories, her fears. "You lost him before," it whispered, its voice a haunting melody that dripped with malice. "Are you prepared to lose him again?" "No!" she cried, voice breaking, tears stinging her eyes. "I want to let you take him." With resolve, she launched herself forward, ready to fight whatever illusion this was. The ground quaked beneath her feet, and she stumbled. But she didn't stop. She could see shapes in the mist, flickers of movement, dark, shifting silhouettes that seemed to mock her. Suddenly, she heard a scream. It was unmistakably Sammy's, pure and filled with a terror that shattered her resolve. "Mom! Help me! Sammy!" The name tore from her lips, leaving behind an echo of desperation. She raced ahead, lungs burning, heart hammering against her ribcage. The shadows swirled closer, licking at her heels, dragging her back into despair. "You can't save him while you can't save yourself," they mocked, voices intertwined, chilling her to the core. Fighting against the overwhelming feeling of hopelessness, she reached for the last flicker of light within her, a memory of his small hand clasped tightly in hers, the warmth and safety it had brought her, now nothing but a distant shadow. "Show yourself!" she roared, and the ground shifted violently, churning as a dark shape rose before her, a grotesque caricature of everything she had fought against. Its face twisted into a malicious grin, revealing rows of jagged teeth that glimmered in the half-light. "I am the nightmares you run from," it hissed. Jessica stumbled backward, fear and rage igniting a fire deep within her. This was more than an entity, it was a manifestation of her guilt, her failures. And yet, it looked so much like Sammy, the same piercing eyes now hollow and empty. "You're a part of me," she screamed, her voice strangled by terror, but before she could draw another breath, the figure lunged, swallowing the light and plunging her into a deeper darkness. As the world twisted around her, she felt an icy hand on her shoulder, a chilling whisper of certainty that she might be losing herself to the shadows. "Will you embrace me?" it murmured, and as everything faded, a taunting echo echoed in her mind, "Or do you still hold hope?" Jessica fought against the disorienting pull, knowing now that her greatest battle had only begun. As the darkness closed in, she gasped for air, clinging to every fragment of strength her love for Sammy could offer, and then a thought emerged. What if she had already given in? A flicker of light ignited in the distance, tantalizingly close yet obscured beneath layers of shadow. With the chilling truth gnawing at her, she whispered, "I will find you, Sammy." But still, the one lurking in the mist was wickedly waiting, hungry for despair, ready to unveil more of the horrifying truth. What if the shadows revealed secrets too terrible to bear? Jessica's breath was jagged, each inhale sharpened by the weight of her reality. She stood on the threshold, between risks and horrors, both past and future looming like storm clouds in the distance. Shadows wrapped around her, suffocating in their embrace, and the hatred echoed in their whispers settled deep into her bones. Sammy's scream still rang in her ears, and they pierced the thick fog like shards of glass. "Mommy!" His voice was a beacon, but the shadows engulfed it. They built walls of dread, taunts woven from the tapestry of her fears. Jessica conjured a tight grip around that flickering ember of hope, but it felt so fragile, threatened by the encroaching malevolence. "Why do you run?" The shadow creature sang, its voice dark and velvety in the mist. It blended with swirling forms, shapes writhing like sea creatures, tempting her, calling out the darkest questions in her heart. You fail to realize the truth. Each step toward the light deepens your despair, not just your own, but your son's too. With resolve hardening in her stomach, she shouted back, "You don't control me. You don't control him." The pulse of her heart synchronized with each defiant syllable, a rhythm of pure intent, but the shadows simply laughed, that chilling, haunting sound enveloping her, wrapping around her like an icy blanket. Where do you think you are? This is your home. A home of your regrets, a home that has claimed you. Panic ricocheted through Jessica, bringing memories flooding in each disappointment, every missed moment with Sammy swirling like a tempest of guilt. The laughter swelled again, and she felt her feet falter on the squishy, damp ground, but she steadied herself, pushing against the bleak despair. "I will find him," she screamed with fierce clarity. Her words rang out like a war cry, echoing defiantly through the mists. "I'm not here to stay. I'm here to fight." "Fight what?" The shadow hissed, mocking and sneering. "You can't fight what's in your blood. You're but a pawn of your own mistakes. Come home and let the world you've buried embrace you." As if sensing a shift, shadows surged forward, each flicker a cold reminder of what Jessica sought to abandon. The malevolent darkness coiled around her, but something inside burned brighter with every second. "You don't get to decide my fate," she roared, a primal force of urgency propelling her to action. With every ounce of will, she pushed through the thick mist, the ground trembling underfoot, responding to her defiance. It was a battle against her own memories, against her own self. This darkness shared not just a home with her, but it craved her surrender. "Sammy." The name erupted from her lips, a lifeline snatched from the face of despair. "I'm coming." And then she saw him, a flicker of light, small yet radiating warmth amid the chilling darkness. He was not lost, not yet. A tether formed between them, pulling her forward, urging her to bridge that last gap. The entity lunged forward, its grotesque features morphing into a twisted shape of innocence. "You will never reach him," it screamed, its voice thundering across the emptiness. "His fate is entwined with your own." "I'll claim my fate," Jessica shouted back, emboldened. She fought it tooth and nail, transforming her fear into fierce fervor. The entity could not possess her without a fight. Jessica dashed toward the flickering glow, her heart raced, a drumbeat of defiance echoing against the shadows hungry to claim the light. Tendrils grasped and clawed, but she surged forward in relentless pursuit, plunging deeper into the abyss. "Leave him alone," she cried out. The shadows buckled against her voice, a moment of distraction she seized like gold. Finally, she reached him, her hand brushing against his small palm, warm and real, grounding herself in the love that surged through her veins. "I'm here, Sammy." His eyes sparkled with unedited joy, a flicker of life amidst doubt. But then terror returned. The shadows surged, wrapping around them, ravenous. "Mommy!" Sammy cried out, voice breaking. "Hold on tight!" Jessica yelled, her voice strong despite the chaos around them. She pulled him close, wrapping her arms around his small frame. The force of living, breathing love surged. The relic's warmth pulsed between them again, echoing with the light she had carried all along. As the shadows lunged, Jessica turned toward them, ready to defy everything she had feared. "You want to take him?" she roared, power swelling within her as she embraced the force of her love. "You will not take my son." With every fiber of her being, she pulled the shadow closer, daring it to accept her challenge. The darkness shrieked, recoiling from the incandescent love she wrapped them in. Light exploded from Jessica, consuming the shadows, radiating brighter than any fear or regret. It surged through her heart, igniting a blinding glow that illuminated all. The terrors peeled away, revealing truths that had long lain dormant. "I choose love," she screamed, and an ethereal energy enveloped them both, tearing through the shadows in an exquisite burst of warmth. The depth of her soul vibrated, echoing back every time she fought, a love forged from every sacrifice she had ever made for him. The darkness screamed again, a banshee wail of loss. But love prevailed, and she felt the shadows retreat, defeated and quaking as her heart took its rightful place. Moments still hung like fog, but she felt life, hope, clarity, and she clutched onto it fiercely. The shadows dissipated, leaving only echoes, memories of their cruelty fading into the air. Together, Jessica and Sammy emerged from their battle into the light, breathing fresh air as they broke through the final remnants of confusion and fear. The shores of Point Haven glistened, liberated from the clutches of darkness, and the world opened wide before them. "Mommy!" Sammy beamed, his innocence shining brighter than the sun above. She pulled him close, wrapping her arms tight, consuming every moment that reminded her of love. "Yes, my sweet boy. We're free," Jessica whispered as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Together, we're free." As they walked back toward the shores of their lives, Jessica knew the battle wasn't over, but that was okay. They would face whatever came next together, stronger and unyielding in their love. They would explore the depths of life, untangled from shadows forever. This was the beginning. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.